All right, we are live.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and being a part of the Spiritside Chats. It's a pleasure to have you all here. To start off this call, we're actually going to ask Anthony to start the morning meditation for us. So without further ado, Anthony, just take it away.
Sure thing, will do. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Thank you all for coming in. So, to start this, just take a moment, take a deep breath. Keep your eyes open, closed, whatever you like. Sit where you like, as long as you're comfortable, and you can relax back. So take a deep breath in, as high as you can, as full as you can, but not straining. Pause a moment and release, pushing air out as far as you can. Completely exhaling without strain. Pause. And in, filling yourself up. Pausing, releasing. And a cycle like this, remembering to keep ourselves stable without pushing too hard or pulling too hard on the breath. A balance 50-50 of letting the breath go where it likes, as well as trying to increase the fullness of the breath cycle. And one more in. And out. I like to imagine a curve rising and falling with that one, so that as you're inhaling, you're slowly pulling on the air at the end until it stops, and then you slowly start to exhale and slowly start to inhale again as you slowly stop exhaling. So with this meditation, let's focus on where we are. Where are we living within our bodies? Can you locate yourself in your mind? Your mind is ever present within the body and without the body. Yet we inhabit this vessel. And so where do you believe you live? Where do you reside? For most, it should be behind the eyes. We believe that the brain is the housing for consciousness, and that this is where we do all our thinking, and it's just where we are. So we have this kind of reservation, or we like to believe that we are in the brain. But I'd like you to think about your feet right now. Wiggle your toes. You're there. You're feeling it right now. We are living in our feet. And that's not a mechanical switch. You're not in your brain somewhere pulling a lever and the foot is like a marionette on strings or something. You feel everything in the foot. And so by moving our mind outside of the brain, we become more closer connected to the body and the sensations that we have around the body. This is just external. But let's try and move the mind outside of the head region now, sinking down. So using the breathing technique, in slowly, holding momentarily, out, slowly. Keep this in mind and start to sink your mind out of your brain. Focus on the throat. Does it feel tight or relaxed? Find its neutral point. Breathing in. And keep sinking down, moving into the chest. In, sense your heart. Does it feel tight, loose, cold, warm? You feel it beating? Pay closer attention than usual. Breathing slowly. Sinking down. Start to sense your way down the torso. When you get to your belly, focus here and notice you have a bit of space to play. You can move your mind energy, if you will, around. Sense the right side of your belly, the left. Pop back up to the heart, say hello for a while. Sink further down, breathing in to the lower pelvis. Focusing on comfort and warmth. In and out. Feeling safe where you are. Comfortable and warm. Notice how this feels different to when we first started, when we were behind our brain, behind the eyes. Return to this place. Notice the difference in your emotional state, the rate you feel you're beating at or moving at, the essence of time. And finally, a thought for later if you would like to try this again, is to imagine all that we have done has been inside the body. We've journeyed through our torsos, through our center line, not even reaching to the limbs at this time. And once you have explored the body, start to emanate this presence you are cultivating, this awareness, beyond your skin. Feel your mind flowing across your skin, across the nerves. And it is best to work with the hands, as they are highly sensitive. We use these for touch most regularly. So in the future, you may explore this extrasensory experience outside of your body as well as within. Let's take a final few breaths. Breathing in. Thank you all, and namaste.
Thank you, Anthony.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for listening.
That was wonderful.
You feel relaxed? Feel good?
Yeah, definitely. Most
Don't fall asleep.
definitely.
There was a few things at the same time there. What did you say, Austin?
I was just saying, yes, you absolutely feel relaxed from this meditation we did.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, I'm ready to just go to bed now.
And that's been called.
Yeah.
The theme of today's call is on tradition and on reflection. We were talking about this morning as sort of looking at really like the traditions that we have really on a societal level, you know, like in there's many different traditions around the world, and there's small little like family traditions that we have with our families, and then there's larger traditions, just like the existence of holidays, right? And I was even actually talking with our friend Thane last night about this. He brought this up, and he was expressing, he was like, I don't like holidays because of like where they came from, right? And like most holidays, whether it's Easter or Christmas or anything like that, not only came from very, you know, deep-rooted, often Christian or other religious traditional practices.
Prior to that, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, like I mean, the Christian adoption of previous traditions and whatnot as well. But then how that's really been changed and how it's been sort of capsized by the capitalistic, you know, Western perspective, you know, of like Christmas is just, it's not about giving anymore, it's about what you're getting. Go and, you know, buy things, spend money, you know, Black Friday, Thanksgiving, it's like we or like, yeah, we, the society at large, we killed everybody who lived on this land and then celebrated as a time of Thanksgiving. It doesn't make sense, right? So we were talking about tradition, and he asked me, what do you think about, I mean, like tradition and holidays and stuff like that? And I was like, in my experience, or at least in my, you know, I can't personally like stop Christmas, and that's not necessarily something that I want to do, but that I want to within myself live the holiday as the way that I feel like it ought to be lived and celebrated, by taking it to its, at least its spiritual roots. You know, if it's really a time of giving, then I want to give, and really also take that concept and apply it to the rest of the way that I live all year round, right? Because like it shouldn't be like, oh, you only give on Christmas and all the other times it's, you know, whatever. It's but really like living in that state and living in that space of giving and using it as a time of really making a point of connecting. Like if you've not spent any time connecting with certain people in your life, then maybe this is a good time to like purposefully reconnect and be like repair, you know, the relationship, or make something right in your life, or just reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in a long time and give them some quality time of your attention and your presence. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, that, and probably the most impactful thing you can give of someone. It's not physical things, but your love, you know? And sometimes love comes in the form of physical things, but it's not specifically related to it, right? Like if you know someone really wants something, like, or rather that could benefit them, then that could be a really good way to give a gift. But for other people, it's like just spending quality time, you know, words of affirmation. There's 5 love languages. Gifts are only one of them. And so, yeah, as we're talking about traditions, and even Aaron and I were talking this morning about establishing new traditions, right? Because that's sort of the period that we're in right now. My meditation teacher, Alex, told me just the other day that we're in sort of a 300-year, almost like a 300-year war, if you will, but it's a transitional phase between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, right? And a lot of the old sort of deep-rooted religious doctrines and ideas are really going to go through some crazy upheavals, and it's going to take some time, you know, for the whole world to sort of go through these phases. But in that, maybe establishing some new traditions and establishing some new practices that we can carry forward that are more in alignment with who we really are in our hearts, might really be one of the healthiest things that we can do, especially if we don't feel really aligned with any particular holiday. In this case, you know, it's Christmas. In this side of the world, right? It's probably Hanukkah somewhere else. I don't really know. I'm sorry if that was offensive. I want to open it up now. Maybe pass it to Aaron, or if we feel called to share it. And
Yeah.
what do you guys?
Well, to rephrase a little bit into a more question type phrase would be like, what traditions do you celebrate? Why are you celebrating them? What are we carrying forward with us, and why? There's a lot of, like, when I'm speaking with very traditional spiritual people, a lot of them go, well, this is the gospel, and I respect it, I appreciate that, but then these are my traditions. And a lot of times too, the traditions were forced or created by this gospel, but a lot of times too, that tradition was not the gospel itself, right? So we'll say, with the example of the Christmas tree, that doesn't come from the gospels, but they still celebrate it and use it as their tradition. So this is now the difference between, are you practicing something because of its spiritual nature, or are you practicing something because it's the way it's been, right? So the question again would be, what are our traditions and why are we celebrating them, right?
Very well said.
So that's what I want to open up.
Cool. So would anybody like to go first, or would you want us to start throwing up the talking stick?
Well, we could go in order there. I'd say Joshua would be the first pick I could see. So if you want to go.
Sure. Okay, what are my traditions? I am atypical, but that's okay. Let's see. I haven't celebrated Christmas since I was 12. So, because my dad died on Christmas Day. And so this year I decided I'm going to get back into the gift-giving spirit, because I didn't celebrate any holidays, really. Not in any traditional sense. I would meet up with others so my tradition has always been community, and looking for those people who around social holidays are in pain, and showing comfort and support. That's what I've always done. And this year I've decided that I am going to try to celebrate things in the spirit of how other people see them, because their experiences are as valid as my own. And so one of the things I'm doing for Christmas this year is I am making gifts of love. Namely, I'm making these little, they're like ornaments and such, but filled with crystals and charged with love.
Cool.
Nice. Sounds like a very good idea.
That is very cool.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
Cool. Austin, would you share with us your traditions and practices?
Well, absolutely. For the most part, I would say that as far as Christmas is related, for most of my life, it's been a sense of generosity towards everybody and everything, mostly because it's always been a widely held belief, at least in my mind, that no one deserves to feel anything less than happiness and joy come Christmas time. So I usually like to go out of my way just to make sure that everybody has that feeling, so that no one has to worry about anything less than, oh, is everyone feeling all perfect and happy this time of year? Because if not, they deserve better. So a couple of times I've gone out of my way to purposely help people, such as with simple things like giving money to homeless people and aiding people beyond what they normally need at whether it's a job or school or what have you. I know this may not sound like much of a traditional thing, but I like to see it as such because, honestly, no one deserves to feel less than happy this time of year. It's whether you have snow or otherwise. It's just a sense of bonding and brotherhood, but even if you're not actually brothers and sisters with that person. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. It's great. Well, I think it's a tradition anyway, so if you repeat it every year, then you're making a tradition. So
Absolutely.
Thank you, Austin. Yeah, that's very good.
Appreciate that.
That's beautiful. Anthony.
So yeah, the question again was, what traditions do we all do around Christmas time? Is that right?
Yeah. What traditions are you doing? Why? Or what do you want to carry forward?
Oh, right. Yeah, we're talking about traditions. Well, I mean, there's never really been much of tradition for me that's like been set in stone. I mean, not that I notice really anyway. And when I'm with my family, you know, they have certain things that they do. You know, like we usually standard things like cracked chestnuts and. Sorry, someone asked me a question. No, okay. No, you know, the standard things like that. Well, there's something about tradition I just wanted to say is that someone in the group brought up, in the YouTube, brought up the notion of fasting, and since we were just talking about other religions and their traditions as well, from what you said, Jordan. You know, I think that adhering to any of these other traditions or religious practices can be useful if you find a way to, fasting can be very good for strengthening your will and strengthening your, spiritual nature in a sense. So, you could just jump on the bandwagon when everyone's doing Ramadan. You just go, hey, I'm going to join in, and you make a load of new friends probably, because maybe people here aren't typical people who would be, experiencing Ramadan. So I think, building and taking new traditions can be just as important as keeping old traditions, and always change it so that it's good for yourself. I mean, otherwise it's work, right? I mean, why would you want to just do a tradition because it's something you should do, So yeah, I definitely think making a tradition your own is great. And I mean, we're actually talking about starting our own traditions this year, so maybe I'll let you know what we've decided to do and what we've decided to carry on. One thing is doing a puzzle every year. Like, most people enjoy puzzles, but we usually do one at Christmas, and as a family, and me and Rita we've bought a 1,000-piece puzzle of a dragon looking at like a woman stroking a dragon. It's quite cool, so we thought we'd do that.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. All right, I believe it's Karen.
Hi guys. I think like I connected to a little bit of what everybody was sharing. So I'll kind of like touch on them a little bit. Like, for example, fasting. I think that's like a great idea, bringing into the Christmas spirit. Not only just food fasting, but also like spending and consumerism fasting. Consumerism. Because it comes down to the holidays and everyone's just like spending on all these like big companies, and I think like for me, I'm doing kind of like what Josh was doing, where I'm actually like creating gifts out of love, and I'm actually like putting love into them and thought and quantifying that, and buying organic products and giving them to the people that I love, and making organic things, and like, like, this tea's really gonna help your stomach. Like, I know you've been sick, like, and that just thought behind it, like, I love you, I want you to take care of yourself. In this like shift, like, it's really important for me to give things that are gonna just help everyone out. So I'm trying to be very mindful with that. And then let's see. Other than that, cooking with my mom would be very.
So, let's go cook it.
There you go.
Hi, David.
You mentioned cooking with your mom?
Yeah, cooking with my mom, and trying to be more mindful with what she's cooking too, and just like trying to teach her a little bit more about health-wise and spending time with her, and also just that, we don't need to celebrate like Christmas like just once a year, or it just be like a reason for us to spend like family, because we want to, like, whenever we can. And the last thing I wanted to mention was isn't there like a metaphor between the Christmas tree, lighting up the Christmas tree, and like the body is the tree of life, Kabbalah. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of that, but that's very interesting.
And the lights and the balls around the Christmas tree, like, and then the star at the top.
I've heard of it.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all.
Thank you so much for sharing. Totally. I believe we have Morgan next.
What are your traditions?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so when I was growing up in Washington State, I actually was part of a church that my grandfather was used to be a pastor of, a Covenant church. And pretty much when I was growing up, there was a lot of traditions in that, such as like potlucks and Easter and stuff. But when it came around to Christmas, the community that was part of the church was mostly a Swedish community. They even, I think, previously had sermons that were taught or spoken in that language a long while ago. But so for Christmas morning, one of the traditions that they would do is they would have a service called LITE, I believe. And that was a service where in the morning, it was everyone was given a candle. And what would happen was at the end of the service, you would take, one person would light the candle, and then they would keep passing it next person, until the whole church was lit up just by people holding candles. And that was part of the tradition I remember growing up, was getting to see and be part of all of that. And it was a really kind of a special thing. And yeah, so that's one of my family has other traditions that kind of go around that time that they've kept, like reading my grandfather's book of that he had done for, because he's a Lutheran pastor now, so he wrote a whole bunch of different sermons and stuff, and we'd read out of that. And so that's another part of our tradition that we do every year. And yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of we just got a poster a couple weeks ago for our
Might be able to say it
for our office, and yeah, over here it says it's funny because it's Buddhist, but it says thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases from being shared. And
that's exactly what the whole thing was about. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So that's really cool that, you know, it's these like just basic ideas like this too just transcend different, you know, belief systems too, to just they're just inherently known. It's wonderful. Yeah. So I think we now pass it on to our final member. We just had David join us. David, thank you for hopping in. We are talking about traditions, and the question is, what are your traditions, and why do you celebrate them?
Let's see. Well, hey, can you hear me okay? All right. I'm coming from an undisclosed location. So, let's see. So, I'm actually Mormon, and we celebrate like Christmas, Easter, stuff like all the Christian holidays. Oh gosh, you know, it's especially when it comes time around Christmas time, because it's a pretty special time. Got a guy who came in and did a whole bunch of stuff. Well, he came in at a different time, but he came in around whenever 2,000 years ago. Did a bunch of cool stuff, helped us out, changed the world, and it's worth celebrating. Worth celebrating, indeed. So, it's kind of my thing. But my signal's a little bit breaking up, so I can't hear you well.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, no, we really appreciate all the different perspectives and traditions and the roots where these practices come from. Is part of the nature of that question was trying to analyze within ourselves, where are these energies coming from? Why are we celebrating them? Is it, again, from a traditional text, or is there a deeper meaning as to what we're specifically trying to embody and trying to shift within ourselves? And one of the next question that I want to propose to go around the group would be, what have you learned from this past cycle, this past year, even like from the last solstice in December to this one, right? Or equinox, solstice. How have we grown in this past cycle? And then what are we now going to take forward with us into the next cycle? And that's very similar, again, to the traditions, right? What traditions have we carried with us up to this point in time? And then which new traditions will we be carrying forward? And what do we want to really take with us? So for me and my own personal family, we were talking a lot about this just this past weekend of what do we want to celebrate this time of year? And then what new traditions do we want to create? And one of the ideas that we talked about was, let's have like a vision board building day and have that be the way that we celebrate, by taking the time to reflect over what actually happened over the past year and then project that into our vision for what we want to create in the new year, and having this transitional season being the mark of reflection and then inspiration for the new year. So I could phrase that as a question of, what have you learned from this past year, and what are you carrying forward now into the new year as a result of your experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing your story on that. Let's actually just open it up first. If there's anybody who just feels compelled to jump in and share their story.
I could put something in. This may not be anything you guys would have anything to do with, but I've learned how many times you can empty out a Connex and fill it back up in one day, and that's that's one of those shipping containers. You know, those big shipping containers that they put on semis or on boats and ship across the. Yeah, we were about, before we came here, we had to empty them out and fill them back up several times. So I learned that. As for other things, you know, as you get older, you actually do gain more wisdom. You get a little bit more information about what's going on. You're better informed on your actions. That's kind of a cool thing, you know, being able to kind of know better of what's going to happen, what you need to do, be better prepared for things. It's the same in the civilian world as it is in the military. The older you get, the more wisdom you have, the better informed you are, the more experience you get, that type of thing. Yeah, that's about what I got to say for
that. We could be going back the other way now, and it would be Morgan next on the list if you want to go. What are your reflections and inspirations for the new year?
Well, I don't know. I want to be able to go up and see like my friends in Colorado and kind of reconnect with some old friends, and but that's kind of like some New Year's resolutions that are kind of coming up. But in terms of reflecting on the year, I've just had, you know, learned so much throughout the year that it's really changed my perspective over and over and over as I've gone along. It's like, wow, I used to think like this, but now I think like this, but I've learned because of it. And then it's kind of like you just keep, people change so much in such a, especially like their ways of seeing the world, their perspective, and stuff like that, I guess. I know I'm being very broad, but yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Karen, would you like to go next?
Like, is it me next? Let's see. I really like your idea, and about the vision board with the family. Like, that's so like thoughtful, like, in a group setting. Like, I'm definitely gonna like try to convince my parents. Let's just sit down and buy a bunch of magazines. I think that's really beautiful. I feel like this year has been very transformation year. I've like learned too much and a lot, and I feel like we received like daily downloads, daily like information like through the collective. And I'm like trying to understand this new way of being, and sometimes it will just be like like the biggest waves just passed, right? The biggest like energy waves, and obviously there's still more to come, and we have a couple of big years coming up. But this year was so like huge, and me understanding like different like we're all of us are almost on different timelines, and it's kind of like when I talk to certain people, I'm like, okay, like you are almost like a past me. And I'm like just trying to communicate with my past. So it's kind of like trying to, this entire year has been just trying to understand just more, and next year, like I want to understand more, and I want to do more healing, because we heal. I hope we heal every day, and healing, and getting people I love to the next thing. Like we should all go together. Grab my hands. Let's go. So yeah.
Awesome. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess that would take us to Mr. Anthony next.
Hey, could I actually go last on this? Because I would like to present that idea that I was speaking about at the end. That's all right.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Totally.
Mr. Tinker Chain, you're on the mic.
Alrighty then. So as far as what I've learned this year, that would be twofold. Number one, whether you're whether you're showing compassion and charity to someone in need, it doesn't matter if it's only something small or large. It only takes one little bit to start a massive domino effect into spreading such an idea. As a philosopher once said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, whether it's for a person or an idea. And the second is, even though some of this new stuff regarding spirit science is new to me and I may not fully understand it just yet, it doesn't mean that the perfect way to understand it isn't out there. I just need to find it, and I'm sure that when the time is just right, everything will just come together like pieces in the proverbial puzzle. Thank you.
That's really, really good. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to sharing more about like all the stuff that we've gotten into as well, with Tarot and Kabbalah and stuff like that. Hopefully make it easier to understand and make more, like, just flesh out and fill it out, because there's so much information that we really have to start at the basics and then develop like a very elaborate puzzle. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Joshua.
So to recap, the question is, what have we learned since last solstice that we're going to take with us as new lessons to build a new year? All right. I learned that everyone and everything is one thing. I learned how to lose the human form, as the Toltecs would call it. I learned dreaming myself into new being by having a waking vision of my own grandfather's future self, bringing me forward to see his own death 6 months before it happened, and then it happening all this year. What did I learn this year that I'm taking with me? I learned who I am beneath all the lies that I told myself, the things that I'd accepted from others around me. And I know that what I'm taking forward into this new year is the deepest appreciation and love for each and every one of you who have helped me on this journey. It has been a moving and beautiful year, and I know that all there is to see more in each and every day. So thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to share with you, Joshua.
Your presence is so appreciated here. Thank you.
Aaron, you said you had something you wanted to throw in there?
Totally. I mean, from hearing all of your stories and your growth points, we'll get back to Anthony as well. I'm excited to hear yours, but in my reflections, my inspiration, what spawned this question in the first place was, what have I learned from this past year, and how can I share it at the same point, right? Like, it was a relative or a relevant question to ask myself. Similarly with the traditions, what am I carrying forward? And I think one of the biggest lessons that I actually learned in this past year was really believing in yourself. There's going to be continual waves of energy coming from all around you, from everyone else's experiences, but that light within you is that indestructible radiance. And by really tapping into that love and that light, you gotta believe in that. And as soon as that connection is made and you live with an inner faith and a belief in your ability to go above and beyond what other people's doubts are, what other people's limitations are. I've, in my own reflections, had a lot of people telling me what I can't do. And I've, in the past, accepted that as my reality, but not anymore. And that came through the experiences of believing in myself and then watching those seeds grow into fruit and then replanting that and continuing going. So if ever there was a seed that I could plant, it's never stop believing in yourself or in your dreams, because that right there will carry you to heights beyond everyone else's imagination. So like, no one is going to live your dream for you. No one else has that same dream either. And that's part of the beauty of it. So being able to really tap into, what is your dream? How are you believing in yourself and making that happen? Like, that was my own lesson. And I wanted to just like share that, as belief in yourself is probably one of the best lessons I think I could have learned. And that's what I'm carrying forward.
Thanks. Yeah, cool. Well, if Anthony wants to go last, then I guess that means it's my turn. So let me think for a second here. There's so many things that have come to mind, and like to try and put it into a little, not a blurb, but you know, like a couple of paragraphs, a couple of minutes worth of explanation is easier said, but I'll do my best. Let's see. I guess the first thing was that I learned how to make a tarot deck. It's probably one of the biggest ones, and I also learned how much effort or how much information is actually like in a tarot deck, because you think, you know, you're just like, oh, it's cards, you know, there's a bunch of pictures and like they'll have a little meaning, but it's like, no, there's like, you got to know the planets and the stars and the like the constellations and the elements and then the chakras and then the tree of life and the whole Kabbalah and that whole thing. And it's just like this massive undertaking that took a huge amount of time. Also learned how to write a book, yes, because we did that along with it. And, you know, that was just tons of fun. And it's still all happening, you know. I guess in a lot of ways we've learned how to I've learned a little bit of how to run a company, because that's not something I ever grew up wanting to do or you know, anything like that, but we had to really set up some structure in order for us to really grow and to create a spirit studio, you know, to fill the dream of the spirit studio. And I'm very grateful for my friends and family. Aaron is right up there at the top of being there to really help craft the structure of the company so that I didn't have to worry about it so much. But I still learned about it as we went, because he wouldn't stop talking about it. So, oh, cool, yeah. Someone just commented too. They got to say the card swap kind of caught me off guard, because we did make some changes to the tarot. And I'll probably even explain that in a minute here. That's one of, well, I guess I could probably factor it in here. One of the things that I learned is that things are malleable. In order to, I mean, everything, we actually watched this video the other day of Steve Jobs, who's, you know, a quote from Steve Jobs that says, look, everything that's around you, everything that's being created was created by people who are no smarter than you are. And you can change it. You can change reality. So when people are saying things like, you know, this is the way that things are, and you have to just, you know, be miserable, get a job, live your life, retire, and, you know, and whatever, no, you can change life, you can change reality. You know, there's this huge movement that's happening right now, which is really what we were talking about from 2012, the rise of the divine feminine. It's starting to happen now with this huge women's liberation movement and huge sort of coming to light and truth. I mean, Times People of the Year was the Truth Speakers, and it's amazing to be a part of it, actually. But there's this is relative to the tarot, because we've switched the Empress and the Emperor, making it go the Magician, the Priestess, the Emperor, and the Empress. And the Empress is at the highest level before the fifth element. And it's confusing, it seems at first. Why would you do that? But it balances the whole energy. I mean, it's like the end of the patriarchy. The tarot is like a symbol and an idea of the structure of creation and everything like that. And so this is really like the rebalancing of that energy and bringing the divine feminine to be the one that brings Christ consciousness into being. It's through the feminine that the Hierophant, the Christ consciousness, emerges. And also it goes male, female, male, female, instead of male, female, female, male. So that all in and of itself is like a little male sandwich, right? And putting the alpha and the omega, being the male and the female. But what if it's the alpha is the magician and the omega is the Empress? So again, I could go into that for a long time, but we're talking about learnings and reflection and everything like that. I've learned also, sorry to just keep going on, there's so much. It's like you have to really get centered in the truth that you know to be true. I spent a lot of time this year believing in and acknowledging the stories that other people were imposing on me. And I learned that has tremendous consequences. Even when I was doing what I believed was right, like, you know, this acknowledging someone's story to help them. Well, I believed that it would help them in their transition of it, but in not doing that, I sacrificed myself, and I sacrificed my own beliefs, and I sacrificed what I knew to be true in my heart, and it created a mess. And so that's been a huge learning from this whole year of really getting grounded, getting into my body. It's funny, actually, the past 2 weeks I've had 2, if not more, very significant people in my life be like, get in your body, like fully present in your body, you know. Not even in your heart, you're already in your heart, but get into your body. and living and acting from the space of who you really are, and taking that forward. And like, I guess along with that comes with like being, when I got in my body, the more I got in my body, the more I noticed that there was like tension in my back. There was like muscle pain. There was emotional trauma that was stored up. And I actually did last night with a friend of mine an emotional release meditation kind of thing. It's been amazing to realize, you know, the amount of, even if you feel like you've cleared or worked through something on an emotional level or a mental level or a spiritual level, right? Your physical body still also goes in cycles of things can change in your mind a lot quicker than they change physically. And that's probably going back to, there's a comment in here that someone said, not even close to true, in response to what I was saying about how reality is malleable. Reality is malleable, but it takes some time to watch the physical changes, because it cycles, it's cyclical. It's not like you just think a thought and it appears. You think a thought and then you put effort and energy into it, and then you'll see the changes. It's like if you want to like heal your back, you don't just go to a massage therapist or a chiropractor one time. You have to put effort and energy over periods into recorrecting and adjusting your back. And I'm just using that as an example because that's relative to what I'm going through right now. But yeah, it's like release, I guess. Release is a big part of, especially this past month, as we come to the close of this year, is sort of the build up of energy over the course of the year, and then all the things that no longer serve you, really letting them go to embody the highest light that you possibly can. And that's what I've learned this year. Oh, and if you live in your heart, rather, if you live with virtue and with love, then Spirit is going to support you in so many magical ways that you can't even imagine. Like, there were times, I'm sorry, I'm still going, but here we go. It's the last one, I hope. It was like, there were so many times, but in the last even several months, when I would wake up and I would just feel kind of like, or even in the evening or whenever, I just feel kind of heavy, and I'm like processing a lot of emotional stuff and a lot of mental stuff. And I would receive love on the internet from people, just random people, just being like, hey, I love your work. You've helped me so much and all this stuff. And I'm like, what am I receiving from the universe right now? I feel like I'm terrible. And here's all this love coming at me, you know? And so I guess another thing I've learned is to really stay open to receiving from all of the sources that are coming at you, because even if something is really struggling over here, that doesn't mean that there's not love here on the other side for you. And it's by being aware of these different states that we can really find wholeness within ourselves. So thank you all for listening. I'm going to pass it over to Anthony.
There's love. Nice and a half hour.
Thank you. That was amazing. That was really good. And you didn't ramble on there. It was all good stuff, so don't worry about that. But just to everyone who spoke before that, I think, you know, everyone's just seems to be giving out loads of love, and everyone's been through their journeys these past few months, or the whole year we're talking about. And yeah, you know, everyone shared their stories, and there was so many things in there that I was like, wow, this is like my life. Like, everyone's describing what's happening, and it's been the same. I think, like, you know, obviously going through the similar cycles. You know, we've all kind of gone through big changes recently. You know, I wanted to bring it, and especially with what you were saying there, Jordan, about the cycles. Cycles is such an important thing that's been, you know, affecting me personally anyway. I mean, I don't want to ramble on, but I'll just tell a little story of sort of what led me to this point or through this year, and then I'll answer the second part of the question, which is, you know, what am I going to do about it? What am I doing with it? So, I mean, for me, this is on my 21st birthday. Me and 2 other friends decided to go to Amsterdam for a little trip. Like, hey, let's go get high and have some fun and whatever. So we decided to take psilocybin mushrooms while we were there, and took a load. We took a lot. Like, we didn't realize what the dosage should be. An experienced user should take about 5 grams. It is. We took 20 or 20. I had 25 because some of my friends, so we had about 20 grams each, and it was absolutely insane. I mean, I've spoken to a few people about this, but anyway, so we had this, you know, it changed my life. Like, I could talk about the experience for hours, so I'm just going to stop it there. I could talk about that for hours. It was in my head for a whole year, every single day, and processing through that information dump that I received took a long time, and still coming through now. But the point of this is, I'll put it in a nutshell. I experienced what ultimate love and ultimate hate was. Ultimate fulfillment, connection to oneness, the full expression of your body in every loving way. Everything was golden, brimming with light, pouring into me and out of me. That's one half of it. The other half was complete death, destruction, voidness, emptiness, loneliness, blackness. Just I felt like the worst tiny piece of in the world, you know. Like that's the scale of both these sides. Came out of that, had to re-piece my mind back together. I literally understand how crazy people are crazy now. I know why people walk down the street, start masturbating in public, or why people do these sorts of things. I understand, because it's like, if you're in a certain mind state and you've had this like experience happen to you, it seems like a logical thing to do. Like, you know, like you're giving love, you're trying to like give love out to everyone in the marketplace or something. These sorts of silly things. But anyway, so after this all happened, years went by, and then I found myself just trying to figure out what happened or what was there. You know, like my whole life flashed before my eyes at some time, and deja vu became a very prominent part of this. Deja vu is very important. I'll say this now. With deja vu, you can see the future, you can see the past. It's what links your present moment to the future you're creating from the past memories that you hold on to. So that's one thing I will put a marker on. Deja vu it should be paid attention to. So these years went by, and then I went to China, and in China I found a whole new culture, a whole new lifestyle. Everyone's so peaceful there, and it was so just a breath of fresh air away from Western civilization. Everyone's your friend. The whole China sees themselves as one big family. I think when we got there, that was the #1 hit song at the time, was "We Are Family," and it kind of summed up the vibe there. And I always say to people, you're more likely to get offered a cup of tea in a dark alleyway at night than you are likely to get stabbed or mugged or anything. But anyway, so really got into Qigong and meditation, met loads of cool people, studied with teachers. And when I went into meditation, I also started, after a couple of weeks, started smoking weed again. And I had not done that for many years, because after I had the mushrooms, when I had weed, I was back on the mushrooms. Like I was in that same headspace, and I would, you know, go blackout, shout my head off in the room. It was really bad. So cut that out, took it back while doing the meditation, and using it as the kind of like facing my fear in a sense. It was like a big fear that I had to go back to that place, because it felt like I was emitting pure like hatred into the world, if you know what I mean. Like that golden light stuff was there for a while, but ultimately at that time I was a bad person. I was doing things that weren't serving the other people, so that was still quite present. So I had to face that fear. Upon doing this, reconnected back to that place where the mushrooms took me, but through a less forced way. You know, the weed still subsidized that and helped me, you know, get there. But it was so yeah, reconnected back to that spot. While I was there, this is where all the cycles come in. I was investing the love and wisdom that I was receiving, the things that I found about life, you know, relationships, everything. I'll just say life, about life. I was realizing that they were not mine to keep, and they're not only for me, they're not only for one person, they're for everyone. And we have a responsibility to take what is disseminated, what is decoded from the source, and share it with people. You know, you need to pass it on, so it cycles around this huge sphere of consciousness that we are. Terence McKenna said a great thing. You go out on your boat when you take these drugs and things. You go out on a boat, and if you go out and you try and bring something back to feed the people that you're feeding, if you come back and you bring a small little fish, it's not going to do it, and that translates as, you know, something trivial, like, wow, look how my little finger fits in my nose, it's so perfect. You know, it just seems silly. It's trivial, these little things. But if you go out and you bring back a huge whale, it's going to break your boat, and you're going to break your mind, in a sense, you know. So I started investing these things into people, my family, my friends, just giving them love and life, and knowing that through thought it's going to reach them, it's going into the sphere of consciousness, and it's going to be there, and just believing in that. I knew that then returning to the West, there would be a kind of like a fall out of that place. You know, it was so peaceful and loving, felt so complete, but going back was entering back into kind of like a turmoil, chaos sort of zone. And I felt horrible again. I've just come back out of this state of feeling like I'm doing things wrong, like I'm not living up to what I should be. You know, the weight's on my shoulders I've put there, and I'm not carrying it well. And things like these sorts of ideas and thoughts. And just like you said, Jordan, at these times, people have just turned around and been like, "Oh yeah, thanks for doing this thing that you did a while ago. You know, thanks for this, thanks for that." And I'm like, wow, like these moments, like even the last chat, Kevin stayed on the talk with me, and I told him everything. I told him the whole story, and we were there for like an hour or so. And the things he said to me were just amazing. It was just what I needed to hear. I was like, this is the stuff I really just needed to hear to get place. And so with that then, talking about the deja vu and your thoughts, when you're putting thoughts out, they are being manifested as they go. You know, just like you said again, Jordan, it takes time, but they do happen. And it's about routine and repetition, these cycles. You need to keep adding to them or expanding on them, and then they become real. So that's kind of like the long story, or shorter long story of where I'm at now, where I've got to. And more recently, a development in my life has been towards being financially stable. I started a company a while ago, did all that. But then even more recently, we've all in the group been talking about Bitcoin. And this is where I want to propose something, because it's something that is gathering steam, not just in our group, but across the world. Whoever doesn't know much about it, it's a cryptographic currency, digital currency, so that you can transit, just like you do with paper money, you can do the same with cryptocurrencies. And it has value because we say it has value. And it has value because it's a mathematical equation. It's very hard to solve, and people pass them around, blah, blah, blah. So we've also spoke about getting a spirit house, and obviously Spirit Science has a Patreon account, which is very good. That's what makes this possible. People donating via Patreon. So whoever's watching is not on Patreon. It's a very good idea to get involved with that, because it helps us do the things we're doing here. But this is the problem. It takes money. People are less likely to part with their money than they are. People like to be here. People like to talk. People like to do things. People like to get involved. So here's something that we can all do that can help us hopefully one day get somewhere like building a headquarters, Spirit Science Central, where we could all get involved. I'm posting links in the chat right now. So if people want to, hang on, we go on Slack. What should I miss? So there's links here in our live chat. I have to edit the one that's in the the YouTube chat. Yeah.
I'll forward that. I can't do that.
So let's just do that one. Let's just in the YouTube chat. There's a link from Live Up Meditation. If you copy that and post it, it will take you to a page. It takes you to a page, and you can click on Start Mining, and that will just process in the background. So once you've clicked Start Mining on that, just come back to the chat, and I'll tell you what's happening. So right now, are you okay? Have you sorted it? Or are you still?
You can't send links in the live chat, it seems.
No, it's weird. No, I have to just like post it. So anyway, if you do that already? It doesn't matter. But the point is, once that's running, it's in your browser. It's mining. It's mining coins. So you are now devoting the excess processing power of your computer to money, to mining a currency, a coin. This is going to be worth money, and is worth money now, and it's still growing. So if anyone in the spirit science community wants to help out, they can click this link. It just runs in the background. You don't have to do anything, and you're helping spirit science grow. At some point, when this has gathered enough money, we can use that money to do things, and it hasn't cost anyone anything. It's gone up in value in the market because of the trading of other currencies and people putting in their fiat currencies, and this is mining. It's what gives currency power. You can people mine a currency to kind of decode the cryptograph. Don't want to get too technical, but it basically, you're decoding the cryptograph, which is worth value. You know, we know this has value because it takes a long time to do. It takes a lot of processing power of computers. So this is something that can go then towards building whatever we want. One day we could build a spirit science house or anything. We can get involved in projects. So I think this is just a way where we can move forward with something. And if you leave those links open, we'll be able to see how much we've made just at the end of this chat, and we can say, okay, look, we've made this much, and it's worth this much, and we can see in real time what this will do. Yeah, so that's a proposition to kind of go forwards. I think everybody in the Slack chat has been on it quite a lot, and I kind of wanted to put it towards something creative, like you mentioned, Jordan. It's not doing anything there, and like I said in the chat as well, cryptocurrencies are the future of the world, of the internet. No doubt about it. If you do the reading into it, it's going to change the world as we know it. This is going to give birth to, imagine Skynet or a true artificial intelligence. It's now possible because of cryptocurrencies. Any computer that is devoted to this network and mining or trading or holds currency has potential, is linked into a network, a neural network, which can exchange information across the world, anywhere, everywhere. You can buy things with it. You can have algorithms running and processes running on. You can never be cut offline. You can't destroy the server somewhere in India and it be offline. It's everywhere. So this, and the more you read about it, like I said, it's going to do a lot. It's going to change a lot. And a lot of big banks, big businesses get involved in it right now. So I want to put that out there as a step forwards that we could potentially take. Thank you for listening. Sorry it took so long.
It's like, yay, Skynet. No, I'm kidding. For everybody,
yeah, that depends on what we do with it. I think that's where we need to get involved.
Of course. No, of course.
As well.
Just as a note for anybody watching, there are no links to this available that we can post inside of the live chat, but we'll post it in the author comments afterwards.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, please take it away. Go ahead.
So Anthony, does this go to so it uses browsers and it goes to a group or something?
It's a wallet that's set up on coinpot.com. It's just one that I've set up now, but I mean, whoever's going to be taking control.
So anybody can click that and it just starts mining using their browser, and it goes to the mined coins go to a location that, you know, we can, like a coin wallet or something.
And you can set the limit. You can set it to use a high processing power or low processing power. And
that's brilliant.
You can use it on your phones, tablets, computers, anything.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing that we're able to like create that. That's even possible. That's amazing.
Put our
Yeah.
Like a cryptocurrency treasury.
Yeah, the sorry, what was that? Oh, I'm
like, are you talking to me?
Sorry, Karen?
I said, so basically, it would be like Spirit Science wallet and for the Spirit Science project, and this is kind of like for cryptocurrency, Spirit Science treasury. Kind of
Yeah.
I'd like to put something in if I can.
Yeah, please.
I would actually recommend getting into Bitcoin. I've been watching it, and I was seeing David Seaman talk about it. it was what 2,000 back when he was talking about it, and now it's at 16,000 or 19,000 or something like that per Bitcoin. It's jumping. It's going to make leaps and bounds. And if you can get onto it, get into it. Like I'm trying to get something together to get into it, but yeah, if you can get onto it, jump on it because it's gonna fly. It's gonna take off and just go crazy. So yeah,
I'll just
that's
say
my thing.
In 1 month, I've doubled my money on it. So it's a really lucrative thing right now. There will be a small crash towards January, so I would just be careful about getting into it right now. Wait until you see it has dropped by about 20%. When everything's down, when everything's crashed, then get into it because there will be a crash very soon.
Oh yeah, definitely. When it crashes, buy.
That's very funny. I feel compelled to kind of share. Now I shared some thoughts on it in our private chat just the other day. I just wanted to share that here too for everybody and anybody who's listening. That at the end of the day, I mean, this is both incredibly important and also insignificant at the same time. And the reason why I say that is because it feels to me like as much as it is fun and exciting, you know, you can make money by like, you know, just like buying this coin and then a coin gets increased in value and it really is, you know, it's like establishing sort of a global currency, which I know has also a lot of fear probably associated with it because of this whole like, you know, one world government kind of that, there's that side of things. And then there's exciting because it's like everybody's much more connected than they ever have been in the, you know, at all. And it's just really the fear of control that comes along with it. But at the same time, it's not really, it's a tool. It's not, you're not creating anything, right? Like you can use it to create things if you're buying resources or something to, you know, to build a house or to make a technology or to do something for people or whatnot, right? You can even just give them the coin straight up. But the coin in and of itself only has the value that you say that it does, right?
Collectively, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. Right. Yeah. The collective consciousness that people say that it does. And so I was kind of reflecting on it from this perspective of not going crazy on it, on the perspective of like, what are you actually creating? You know, like what are you making? How are you helping people? How are you, you know, benefiting the world by buying currency other than I mean, obviously Anthony shared this wonderful vision of like, you know, if we generated resources and whatnot,
what we can do.
You can do magical things with it, right? But there's a lot of ways of creating resources, and we just must be mindful about the way in which that we're going about the creation of resources, because the dollar value really does equal the effort and the energy that was put in. Just to be mindful of that, and because I feel like just as maybe this just, you know, kind of comes into my mind as because I spend a lot of time making videos or cartoons and whatnot, right? It's like there's a lot more effort that, you know, is required to make a video than it is to like buy a Bitcoin, right? But like the way that would impact people is also equally different. And so I know Anthony actually, he makes meditation cloaks, you know, and I'm personally like, I'm more excited to try out his meditation cloaks than I am to like receive some Bitcoin if that was like the exchange, you know? So it's just like, be mindful of that and you know, do what feels right, explore it. If it's calling to you, be excited about it. But I would say don't invest anything that you're not afraid to lose, you know, like, because we're still in that transition process. There could be 1,000 new cryptocurrencies that evolve and like all sorts of things could change in the meantime. We don't really know what the future is going to hold. And if you put all of your money into Bitcoin and then it happens to fall down, you know,
Completely.
Yeah, and completely disappear, and another coin rises up, and there's a lot of people who've lost a lot of money. And again, I'm not a stocks broker. I don't know about all the things. Maybe Bitcoin's just set for going up, and that's very exciting because Morgan sent me 0.0001 Bitcoin a while ago, and I'll ride that wave too, you know. And thank you, Morgan. But yeah, just be careful, really, with your resources, and make sure you're always putting your resources to best use.
Totally.
Yeah.
I would add too, like, intention in this. Are we intending to create, you know, a wealth and then use that? Or are we just intending to create prosperity and abundance on earth? My vision is, yeah, to create that spirit center, that pyramid, that community, that city, and grow it above and beyond that yet. Like, that's still just the tip of the iceberg. And I understand that it's going to take, well, I'll say, resources to make that happen. But I look at people and time as my most valuable resources there, of like, what are we doing together? And it doesn't necessarily always have to come with a price tag. There has to be an exchange, but that exchange isn't always monetary. And so that's part of the growth that I want to see. And Jacques Fresco, through his analogy of the resource-based economy, kind of created that paradigm as well. And I can see cryptocurrencies being a transitionary period from one to the other. And it's very amazing to watch this progress and to see all the transitions that are happening within our society as we're moving away from a currency that was controlled by a very few people to a system that is now controlled truly by the people. And that's the thing that inspires me the most, is that change. But if we have our intention on what we're creating as opposed to what we're like amassing, is sort of the way that I would describe that. Is like, my vision is the spirit studio, or the spirit center, that city, that growth, that global community coming together, right? The currency in which we get there means not to me, but.
Can I just add something into that as well? Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to say as well, with the resource-based economy, I think that's exactly what is going on here, because there are already currencies that are tied to the salt industry, tied to the medical industry. So by getting involved with those coins, you contribute directly to that industry. And there's one tied to the marijuana industry in California now. And there are a lot more that are coming up that are being tied to ideas that you're not ever investing in a coin just to make money. These things are there. I mean, there are people doing it now. Like, don't get me wrong, there are people who are just in it to make money. There are people who are just in it to, scam people and stuff like that. So you have to be careful. It's still a developing market and it's becoming very profitable. So to completely agree, don't get involved just for making money, and we shouldn't make that the intention. It should be for making something great, for doing something good for the human race out of this. And I think, like I said, however we get there, it doesn't matter. But it's already taking a step towards exchange through this. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. I think,
can I add one more thing?
Oh, take it away, man.
I sense I don't know. I know for myself personally, so I'll just tell this story or this experience from that perspective, that fear about lack of resources was definitely a heavy thing for myself growing up. I mean, there was even a point where I lived under a bridge in February and had to shower in the river before school. And, we put a positive spin on it, but I also understood what not having was like. And it instilled in me this deep sense that somehow money was the root of all evil. That suffering came from desire for it. And one of the things that, since we're talking about things we've learned this year and watching these trends, is I noticed that same idea of, getting into something just to make money, and that not being a creative thing. But then I remember in The Way of the Wizard by Deepak Chopra, he talks about money is just another form of energy. And that's all we're ever really talking about, is just energy. So I think that very much what you're both speaking onto is that intention with your energy process. And I think that that's very much what this year has been all about for me, is re-examining what my intention is with the energy that I'm putting out there, whatever format that energy takes. I mean, me personally, I've gone the route of I have no visible source of sustenance, no visible source of resources. And yet I provide my service as the universe asks, and the universe compensates me. And sometimes that's in the form of money, and sometimes it's in the form of somebody provides me food that day. Or sometimes it's this or that. But I'm not attached to the outcome. And I think that it's all about that intention of how we're using the energy. Are you attached to it because you desire it for greed, or are you focusing on it because you wish to give more of it?
Thank you, Johnson.
Yeah.
I'll have to step away. Thank you, everyone, for the call. Love you all very much. Blessings.
Oh, just close the door. Just really quick, there was one person who, let me like get the wisdom well view here because it's very pretty. There was a person who wrote a question also just on kind of on the same topic, which was, what are your thoughts on net neutrality being repealed? We're supposed to be awakening, but all I see is a further push to control. And I just wanted to like speak on that for a moment too, and maybe open this up as well in the same line, because I mean, as sort of mentioned before, right, there's this sort of idea of like almost a 300-year transitionary period that we're just sort of at the start of. And I feel like there's part of this imposed control, because you can see it. I mean, even with Bitcoin, like the only reason that it would really blow up is if someone somewhere could be like, oh, I can very profit off of this very well, you know, and have a lot of influence and say in it. And I think this is part of this awakening process, is to see the extreme polarities between different states of being. By that awareness, like if you only know happiness because you know suffering. So it's similarly, you only know freedom because you know a cage. And we're going through waves and waves of awakening of the cages right now. Like being aware of cages, more cages get put on. We're like, okay, this is, and then but like they're designed for you not to be able to know it, that you're in a cage. There was a show that we watched a while back, just the first little bit of it, that was really interesting. It's an anime called Sword Art Online. Maybe some of you watching have heard of it. But it's basically, it's like in the future, there's like this VR headset you put on your head, and you close your eyes and you go like into a virtual world, like you're physically in the world, but your body's actually just laying down. You know, it's not like VR that we have it, where it's just like a visual. Your eyes are open. You close your eyes, you're there. And you can't log off. But that's sort of the thing. It's exactly like the Matrix. Like, Mr. Tinker Train. I forget your name again. Austin. Sorry, yeah, Austin just wrote. But like you can't log out. So you're trapped in this game, and you have to beat the game to get through it, right? But right now, where society is at is that people are pulling to want to escape. And this is sort of why a lot of these games are actually developing in that direction, because there's a lot of suffering. There's wars, and there's famine, and there's lack of resources, and there's all of these things, right? And so we're really going to be called right now to really face the fears that we're feeling and face the control scheme and the structure. Oh, hey, Aaron's back. Perfect. And to really rise above our fears and rise above our the imposed limitations that are going to be imposed on us from the collective societal structures, and really break them down. And we have to break them down. And this really goes back to this topic of tradition, and going full circle into this call is, it's from the traditions being knocked down that we establish new ones and make a new society as a whole. And who knows, maybe one day it'll be like, there will be a global tradition of like, this was the day that like Wall Street was destroyed, you know? And like, there's a tradition of like celebrating freedom or whatever way or something like that, on this day every year as like a whole planet, like a planet-wide tradition. And maybe even going sort of with that old sort of Mayan ritual where they had like their New Year's was like a day of burning, basically, and they would burn up all debts every year. So like if you owed people, if there were debts that were unpaid or whatever like that, like you would dissolve it, and come back to compassion and unity with each other as a family and a brethren. So those are my thoughts on that question for whoever asked that, and I hope that was cool. I also open it up too if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
I wanted to say something.
Take it, man.
For net neutrality, from what I understand, that was actually an attempt to grab power from the top down. Like it was meant to control from above, and then you could say what happens down below. So you grab it here, and then you got control down below. But that's my take on what it was. It wasn't just to make things the same, or to make things okay for everyone. It was an attempt to control stuff. That's something that was going on with the last administration. They were putting in a lot of stuff that was just, you can see the effects of a lot of that stuff now. That's why a lot of that stuff is being pulled out. A lot of those deregulations and stuff like that. President Trump put in that thing, take out 2 regulations to put 1 in. And he has a list of all those regulations that have been taken out so far. I think they got it somewhere. But yeah, that's kind of what was going on with net neutrality. So there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, it was, when Ajit Pai, when he said, no, we're not going to do this, that a lot of people were saying, he's the most hated man on the internet. Well, the people who know what's going on, they love him because they know what he saw. They saw what he saw. They knew what was going on. They knew what someone was trying to do. They were trying to take control of the internet, and that should never happen. Free. If there are companies that are trying to like charge too much, there should be room for other companies to come in and charge less. I mean, that may be something that has to come in from a different angle, but not where you control the actual resource itself. You control whoever has access to it or whoever's giving access to it. I don't know if that's the right wording. Maybe differently. You kind of like antitrust stuff. Although that's a field that has some weird stuff going on too. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of my take.
Net neutrality is a very big issue right now, and there's a lot happening with net neutrality. And a lot of, I think there's that law that just passed in America was set so that now companies can charge you more money for visiting certain websites. So if, for example, they can sell you a package where you get access to mainstream sites like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all Google's platforms, blah, blah, blah. But if you visit anywhere outside of those, then they can charge you more per megabyte, per minute, whatever they want. And that could become a very serious problem. That would eventually control the internet because you would get charged so much money for going off site, for going off of the mainstream, for going outside of the place where they want you to be. And again, bring it back to cryptocurrencies. This is a way in which the internet can be sustained. I know that we've just had like some advisories against it and things like that, and that's true. If you're trading, be very careful. But cryptocurrencies as itself is a very we should do more reading about it because it is going to open up complete freedom for the internet and complete freedom in other realms as well. So I would tell them with net neutrality. It's kind of like the remedy for what's going on. That's all I say.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with you what you're saying, but there's that's where VPNs come in. So I know there's a lot of a lot of VPNs, they don't really work very well, or they slow the internet down so far that it's just difficult to deal with. But VPNs then would be the way to go, because you create a VPN to somewhere that doesn't have that type of setup with the ISP, and you would be able to do whatever you needed to do through that VPN, and the charge shouldn't be different. This whole thing about them doing that charges, I don't believe they should be doing that either. I mean, that's doing,
VPNs is pretty hard. VPNs need to have their coded, the software needs to be developed, because China already has a massive war against VPNs, because China limits all internet traffic outside of China. You can't visit Facebook, you can't visit YouTube. The only reason I was Spiritside Chats and things like that was via a VPN, and they were coming out with new updates every month, because the Great Firewall just blocks it every other day. So if they release that to the American government, give them an insight into it, then it could be a very big problem to use a VPN as well. So this whole net neutrality issue would be something that a lot of people pay a lot of attention to in the coming months, because we're at a tipping point. So we need to use what we've built. We all have started to awaken. The whole world has started to awaken, and now we are called to action. We can no longer sit in silence talking amongst ourselves. That has been great, and it is going to be great going forward, so don't get me wrong, but we now need to act and start creating and doing things to implement the new wave of consciousness into the current paradigm.
A friend of mine once shared that there's so much light happening right now that it's blinding, and everyone's blind. And so it's like the awakening process is like we're not really waking up yet, but like we're exploding in the mind with so much awareness and information and ideas and possibilities of what everything can be, but it's so much that it's really distracting to the mind from the bigger picture, which is the heart. And so it really is that it's going to take some time for us to adjust to all of this light, and probably go through waves and phases of freedom and imposed control and limitations and then more freedom, like to be able to get there, right? But there's so many different wills and intentions, and right now, and all of that is really coming to light, coming to surface. And so the world isn't really fully connected yet on a singular truth, but there's all of everybody's truths and understandings that are now available to be shared. They are being shared, and so it's that, like, enough people have to like resonate to specific ideas and messages and stuff like that, and I think we do that through all of these creations that we're making, through new technologies, through advancements in entertainment and ability to share and communicate over and over and over. Yeah. Until people just, till that consciousness, that awareness just spreads, just becomes, people just are like, yeah, of course, kind of like how before the world was flat and then it was round. Now it's kind of flat again, but that's not really a thing. But but like there was that period of like, how dare you suggest it's anything other than flat, right? And that to now it's like, yeah, it's a ball, right? Like we get it. Like that's sort of it's the same transition, but now it's like collective global awareness of each other and ourselves and a part of the planet. What is the planet? What is the solar system? This great unified larger system that then all comes down to right here and right now within each and every one of us, right? And that's the thing that we're still exploring. We're babies, we're infants. We don't know anything. And so as we're coming to the very end of this call here, and this is the last call of the new year, and I want to first, I guess, just express gratitude for everybody for coming and being a part of these calls whether they're on the call right now, like to you guys who are on the call right now, or everybody who has been on the calls over the course of the year. We've had so many wonderful guests and people joining us. And I wanted to ask if there was any final questions or thoughts or anything that anybody wanted to share in the final moments here of this call.
I do. Of course. So has anyone been watching the stuff going on with, anyone been paying attention to QAnon? Has anyone been watching this deep state versus the Trump administration struggle that's been going on? Anyone been watching that at all? I'm just wondering if anyone's paying attention to that, because there's some pretty messed up stuff going down. It's going pretty crazy right now.
I'm personally not very familiar with it.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be some stuff going down, like, I don't know, this like towards the end of this year, like the very end. Yeah, so like QAnon has been saying some pretty interesting stuff. I haven't heard all of what he's saying, but I've been watching some people talk about it, and he said something about that they may have foiled a false flag attempt. That's actually big. Now, it's one thing to just to foil a terrorist. It's another thing when a deep state tries to do something to its own people, and they foiled that. And they caught someone. They got someone maybe in the act, and someone said, "Oh, was it a pawn?" And he said, "No, it was a bishop." And so they got a major player who was in the deep state, and they basically took him out of the fight. However they did it. That's some pretty good news. So
That's great.
Yeah, so the cabal is going down. Cabal is going down.
I'd like to say something.
So
Full circle. A lot of these things that are happening, what you just brought up, David, and also net neutrality. A lot of the things that are happening is basically like they are throwing everything in our faces. Like, look how we can control you. We can do things right to your face, and you know, at the end of the day, like the change really does start within us. The internet, we shouldn't view it as a crutch. We have this huge internet above us. Our spirituality is virtual reality. And there was a post going around the web saying that the end of net neutrality would actually save us from ourselves. And not to, you know, things like this, things that are being to the extreme is pushing everyone's buttons. And like that's what's going to make us actually change. And the change does start within us. And then eventually, like, we won't need even internet to connect. I could just call you through my, you know, I don't know. But it's like develop that more, you know, and like I think that's it's like important that all of these things are happening because they're throwing it in your face, so you could be like, okay, are you gonna wake up or not?
Well, the Aboriginal people back in that they do a dream talk where they actually will go into like
I agree. It's really good.
Trance,
as our
and they'll say we're going to meet
beyond being limited by the reality that we see around us. We start developing new technologies and new ways of communicating, and for every wall that they build, we find ways of moving straight through it, and that's like part of our growth. I almost appreciate the challenge of net neutrality because that will only fuel our fire of getting closer together and finding new solutions to bring this family again full circle. And so it's inspiring to hear that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing this family as it enters the new year and all the new stuff that happens as a result of people being open with themselves and stepping into their own true hearts and living from that space. So thank you, Karen. Thank you all.
And our final message for the day, Mr. Tanuki, Austin, Tanuki Tinker Train, sorry, says he wanted to share something.
Yes, I just would like to say 3 things really quick. Number 1, I would just like to say to David, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
And number 2, just would like to wish everybody who's watching us in this call and elsewhere a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And finally, here's to hopefully seeing you guys in the new year with more information to connect, spread, and grow with among all of you.
Thank you so much. What a
Thank
warm
you.
ending to the call.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this, the last call of the year. Just as everybody knows, the next one will be a little bit late, probably not on the full moon, because Aaron and I are going to be traveling a little bit in the first couple of weeks of the new year. But we'll keep you all posted on our status and when and where that next call will be. It'll probably be around January 10th or 11th or somewhere in there somewhere. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you all next time.
Take care.